Welcome to the Nordic Mythology podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand, owner of the company Horns of Odin. As always, before we get to today's show, I do have to give a shout out to our Patreon. It's obviously how we keep the lights on and how we keep things going and improving and bringing new shows. And that's something I would like to announce today as well. I guess to start, if you can check out our Patreon, it's just patreon.com/Nordic Mythology podcast. For £3 a month, that works at about 10p a day. Pretty much buying me a cup of coffee. You're going to get a bonus Q&A episode that we do with all our guests. After every episode, you get the whole back catalogue as well. So if you can't watch live, you can watch them all after the fact or submit a question ahead of time if there is a guest you really want to ask a question to. We've also put the Storytime episode on that lower tier now. So you get the Storytime episode with myself and Jonas Lorentzen, where we read through a different saga or a different book related to Nordic mythology and the Viking Age, and they just tend to be a lot of fun, really lighthearted. Also, you get a patron hangout once a month, so there's a lot of stuff on there, and there's a bunch of other bits on there as well, like our Discord server and live chats to be able to watch the show live. But what's exciting for me is on the tier up from that, we do a new creator show, which we're going to be recording next week, and that is where a creator from the Viking crafts world will come and they'll demonstrate their skill live on the show and talk us through how they do it, what they do, the techniques, where they get their inspiration from. That's been a show that a lot of people have been excited to. And if that's not enough, we're going to do another bonus show because Claire Moulet, who's been on the show a few times, we've been talking about doing something because we get on really well. So we're going to do a new show where Claire's going to pick little excerpts from a bunch of different stories and bring like a fun, exciting, lighthearted part of a saga or story that she thinks we should all know about. They'll tend to be like comical, but also unknown or unheard of things. So we're all going to be learning something. And anybody who's listened to our shows in the past will see that they're a lot of fun. Don't forget our YouTube channel. A lot of people forget that you can watch the episodes and see all our pretty faces. A lot of the times guests bring little text and pop-ups that they can show. So there's a benefit to that. And the recording time of the shows have changed to Sunday at 6 p.m. UK time. Makes it a little bit more accessible for all the people across the world who listen. Hopefully that American audience can now join and watch live and it's not the middle of the day for them. And I think that's about it. So let's jump into today's show. I'm really excited about this. The topic I find is fascinating. So welcome, Stine Sandnes. And it's the second time on the podcast.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm very excited to be here again.
Welcome. The first time was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's 3 or 4 years ago, I think.
I'm just going to see if I can pull up and see what number it was, because I remember it was in when I used to record in my old house in the bedroom. So it was even before I built the little studio in there. So it must have been a really, really early one. I still remember. This was when I used to have so the company Horns of Odin used to be ran from the house, and the stock used to be behind me. And rather than having all the stock on show, I used to pull a curtain on behind to keep it all covered.
Bob says it's episode 45.
45, yeah. So we're closing in on 200. We're really close.
It's coincidence. It's exactly the same time of year. I think it was in January.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wonderful. We were saying before, a lot of things have changed for you. You now live in Iceland. You had a son.
Yeah.
Lots of changes. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So we do you want to maybe just introduce yourself to people who haven't listened to maybe the first show? And if you haven't, do go back and listen to it and maybe touch on the topic that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So I guess the reason how we know each other is because I run an Instagram account called Heathen. And second reason, or the reason why I'm here today is because I pitched the idea of coming here again and talking about skaldic poetry and heathen belief, because I just think it fits the podcast really well. And yeah, so I'm also a student at the Viking and Medieval Studies at the University of Oslo, but I'm on a break now. But this talk is based on a paper that I wrote on one of the master classes. So it's been reviewed and approved at least by 2 professors. So it's not, I'm just not like, I haven't just read something and then be like, oh, this is a cool idea. Like, so yeah, I just want to know that that's the context. Like, yeah, it's been approved by the real pros.
Yeah. Is it peer reviewed? Is that the right word? Is that the same thing?
No, it's no, it's like a graded paper. So it's professors. Anders Svinroth, he was one of my professors, so he might have been the one who graded it.
Okay, wonderful.
And yeah, today's topic will also be a lot of it is based on the work of Anders Svinroth, Professor Anders Svinroth, and then Professor Margaret Clunis-Ross, and then also Professor Michael Mullis. So just I'm referring to them a lot in the paper, but I just want to name, and also I've also gotten some extra help from Professor Michael Mullis to just to know that I'm on the right track in the paper. So
wonderful. Okay, so the topic is you probably best explaining it.
So yeah, Heathen believes in skaldic poetry, and then in Hallfred's saga and Egil's saga. So at first, when I heard there's not a lot of evidence of heathen belief, I was like, what? What do you mean by that? Of course there is. Written sources, that is. And so I was thinking we have the Eddic poetry. There's so much sources there, but there's there's not a lot of evidence of personal belief. And a heathen themselves saying, I'm a heathen and this is my belief. You have the Eddic poems, which the reason why we know. I'm going a bit basic here because I know a lot of my friends and family who are not that into this will listen. So I
always think that's a great thing, because I say pretty much every week at this point, every podcast is somebody's first podcast out there, and this will be the first time they listen to the show. So just touching on those basic things is always a great idea.
So we have the Eddic poetry, which that's the reason why we know the stories of Thor and Loki and Frey and all that. We have them in the Eddic poetry, and then you also have the Snorri's Edda, and so where he's kind of interpreting those old poetry. But this is the Eddas are really old. They're probably from the 1800s and 800s, 900s years. And so there is some debate, but I'm on the branch of the people who are thinking that they're that old. There are someone who thinks they're a bit younger, but yeah. So they are poems, but they're written by, we don't know who wrote them. But the skaldic poetry, which a lot of them are written in the same time period, we know who they were and that they were real people. And what's fun with skaldic poetry is that a lot of times in the sagas, which are written in year around 1200, 1300, circa, by Christians, they used the skaldic poetry to say that what we are saying now is true. So this and this and this happened. Look at this skaldic poetry. So so when you have Egil saga, you will have the prose, just the written text, history, and then you will have a poem inserted in the story by Egil himself to sort of verify that we are telling the truth. And that's happening in also the King sagas, for example. Yeah. So, but sometimes what's fun as well is that the poetry and prose doesn't always match. The author kind of wants to have an agenda, you know.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So, for example, in Halfred Saga, that I will just give an example that I will talk about later. He doesn't speak that much about he's converting from being a heathen to Christian, and he speaks about that in his poetry. But the
Okay.
poets use a lot more, you know, time and effort to describe that because the author is Christian, so he wants to like really make it seem like he's a good Christian now. But if you read the poetry, it's not like necessarily exactly how it is. So if you read the saga, you will both find, you know, the prose and then the poetry together, and the poetry is way older. Yeah. So so all of the sagas are written by Christians, and then they write about usually heathens and something back, hundreds of years back in time. Yeah.
Wonderful. No, I find this a very exciting topic because, like you said, a lot of the things that we know and understand about Nordic mythology does come from the eyes of somebody either who's Christian, in the case of like Snorri Sturluson, or Ibn Fanland with Islamic faith. Like it's an outsider looking in and having that judgment on it and putting that spin when they kind of explain what they see, and that, you know, looking at it as an outsider, not maybe fully understanding. Whereas in this, it seems we can take actual heathen voices saying this is what we believe and hopefully get that further understanding.
Yeah, exactly. So the first, just to mention quickly, the main sources we have about heathen belief is through archaeology and place names. So there's so many place names with old gods' names, Thor, Odin, Frey, etc. Like I went on a list to see like the place names in, you know, in Norway, and it's just like I couldn't finish. It's so long. It was just like scrolling down. It's so many. So that tells us that, you know, these gods were really, really important to, you know, people in the Nordic countries.
I guess it only gives a very flat, basic idea. You know, if there's a lot of places named after Thor, then you could say, okay, people really clearly like this Thor fellow, but it doesn't really tell you specifically what people think. And probably the same with, you know, archaeological finds. It's a very kind of flat piece, and yeah, you can look at the imagery and interpret it to be something, but it's not the words of somebody saying, I believe this. That you know, they're two very different things.
Yeah, exactly. And in the beginning of when I was starting this paper, I was just like, what? There's not really anything like that, and it's not a lot of it. That I hadn't even thought about that before I started. And yeah, so it is very cool. So just for, you know, people who's watching it, I'll be reading from like a summary I did of the paper. So that's why I'll be looking another way a bit.
No worries. Maybe I think we should start specifically by maybe who was Egil, and like when he lived, who's the figure, and maybe go from there.
Yeah. So Egil, he lived in 1910 and he died in 1990. So he became quite old, 8 years old, and mainly lived in Iceland. He also had family in Norway, but he's from Iceland, and he's a heathen, and he's a skald. And
did you say 1990?
Oh, sorry, I'm so bad with numbers. I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
910.
Okay, 910. Okay, yeah, perfect.
Thank
For a,
you.
for a second, I just wanted to clear that up before people were like, "This is bullshit." She said 90. It's he was alive in 1910.
Uh, yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
All
So,
numbers are
so nine,
yeah,
so
not
nine
my
ten to
birthday.
990.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes. So and so he is known as this very kind of like brutal, super masculine, ugly, aggressive man.
Okay.
Um, and that's like it even says in the sagas like he got his ugly looks from his I think it's his dad, like, and he has more handsome brothers, so he's like
Oh, he's the
and
unlucky one because we all know somebody like that where they're like a really handsome family, and then there's just one of them who's just like,
yeah.
oh, what happened? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so that definitely happened to Egil, and it was, pronounced as well. So but what's fun about that is that he shares so many similarities with Odin, his favorite god. And Odin is also described as ugly. Like one of his nicknames is Ygr, uh, which
Mhm.
means ugly. So
Oh,
Odin is the ugly god.
the ugly guy. Oh, I've never heard that before.
Oh, he has so many nicknames,
Uh,
but that's one of them.
that'd explain why he's always so angry and trying to make everybody fight all the time.
Yeah, and Egil was angry, known as to being angry and fighting all the time as well.
Okay.
And it gets more specific. They both were like known to be very good at reading runes, so runekyndig, like yeah, they were good rune readers. And Egil also knew how to do magic, Seidr, which is also something that Odin was known for. And
Hmm.
probably a lot of listeners know this, but that's a very taboo thing to do for men at that time. Women were the ones associated with Seder or magic,
Hmm.
not men. And you were kind of seen as becoming more effeminate or by associating yourself with magic if you're a man. But Egil is this super, manly macho guy who
Hmm.
is able of doing magic, and same with Odin. Everyone thinks of him as a you know a prototype man, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and he is also known to do magic. So they both have high. Egil was a chieftain as well, and so they both have high like a high status in society, and
Hmm.
they both loses a son. So it's like there's so many. It's I just came to look at it, and it's so many parallels between both
Hmm.
and Egil.
Do you think that's a coincidence or?
Some is probably coincidence, and some could be like Egil seeing Odin like, oh, Odin knew how to, allowed himself to do magic. Then why
Mhm.
shouldn't I? You know.
Okay.
So and then I mean they both loses their son Bodvar. Egil loses Bodvar and Gunnar, and Odin loses Balder, of
Hmm.
course. And that just has to be like I mean, that's just a random coincidence, I guess. Like so many people
Yeah.
lost their kids at the time.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, there are a lot of, and also Odin is the god for the skalds, the people, the men usually. I guess there are some women that we have, skaldic women as well. So
Hmm.
for the people making poetry, he was the skaldic or the gods for the skalds as well.
Hmm.
Uh, so with that said, I'm going to talk about the first um, poem, but
Before before we got
love.
into before
Yeah,
we get in, oh
yeah,
sorry, before we get into like the specifics of the poem, I
yeah,
just want to understand a little bit more
yeah.
about so is he writing this poem down and we have access to his first-hand writing
Yeah,
the
or I
poem?
mean, everything is probably like a bit. There's maybe some letters altered a little bit. I don't know, spelling here and there could be, but I mean, this is Egil's writing. This is a man. living in the not
Okay.
1900s,
Yeah.
in 900s. This is over 1,000-year-old
Okay. That
poetry.
yeah,
Oh,
that's what I was wondering. 'Cause a lot of the time with this kind of stuff, you see, um, I guess it's either they're writing something older that's been passed down orally, like with the Poetic Edda, or it's I see a lot of times like the original document was lost or damaged. Here's a copy, and I always wonder like how accurate is that? I don't know.
no,
So yeah,
yeah.
I was wondering like what form we have like the original.
I mean, I don't know how, like, so the text can be real, but the document can be a copy, if
Okay,
that makes sense. Yeah.
right. Okay, yeah, I'm with you.
So this is, I mean, it was very normal to pass things orally.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure how that's not my area, unfortunately. I'm not sure how how all of this stuff has been, or as we know, it's, preserved, but
Hmm.
in old manuscripts. But yeah, I'm not sure how this is preserved, but it is,
Yeah.
I know from, the professors that I've talked to that this is, the real deal.
Yeah. So to people who are experts in this have verified this
Yeah,
to be his his words.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
So starting with a love poem. So it's after, which I also think is fun because in this poem, you think about like men who are described as egil, that they're not really in touch with their
Hmm.
feelings.
Yeah.
But this poem, like he's very much so. He's sitting alone, being very sad. He's just proclaimed his love or said that he wants to marry or be with this woman called Osgerd, and she turns him down. And he's
So
just
that's why he's such an asshole.
yeah,
Oh,
he's so ugly. No, doesn't stand a chance.
oh, I feel sorry for him now.
Yeah.
He might be an ass, but we all deserve love.
Yeah, no, they end up together at last after some time. So
Okay.
it ends well. Yeah.
He wore her down.
Probably with composing maybe some
I'm
other love poems for her.
I'm
That's just like, whoa, this
yeah.
man is incredible. He really knows how to,
Yeah, yeah, let's go with that. I'm sure that's what it was.
yeah. Also, just fun fact, uh, composing love poems to people became illegal in the text Grogos. We see that composing love poems to people, it's illegal. Uh, yeah,
Oh,
that's when romance died in the Nordic country.
right. How
People
can
think
that
we're not very romantic. It's that's and say love is dead, and yeah, that's when it died.
when was that? When did it become illegal?
They are. I don't think the sources are quite sure, but I think Grogos is from like it's like 10 year thousand. Sorry,
Okay.
like
Don't worry.
but yeah, around year thousand. But it could have been yeah 11,000, 1100.
Hmm.
And but it could be before 1100 as well. But probably one thinks that it became illegal because it was seen as it had such a powerful effect that the
Oh.
parents or the girl felt like, oh, I have to say yes because this is such a amazing poem. I can't turn this man down.
Oh, so it's kind of akin to when somebody, when people put on those gravitas proposals in like a football stadium or a shopping center, and they get like a flash mob and put on this really big proposal, and it's like, oh, the amount of pressure on that poor girl there to say yes must be unbelievable because it takes a big
Yeah.
a big thing to be like no with all these eyes on you.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good parallel, actually. Yeah, because people would usually hear about it as well, like, oh, this guy composed a love poem for this girl, and it's yeah. So
Oh,
that's probably one of the reasons, exactly.
oh, that's
Um,
fascinating.
So this is not a love poem for Oscar, but it's him talking about being devastated. And the guy who comes and asks him, like, "Hey, how are you doing?" It's Oscar's brother, Arnbjørn.
Okay.
And I will, I've decided to skip reading that one because it's just to save some time. But it's basically, I'll just say what it is about. It's just saying that like this woman, he won't say who it is at first because obviously maybe he's embarrassed, like it's his sister.
Oh,
So this
bless him.
woman rejected me and is keeping away from me, and I can't even lift my eyebrows. And now I'm gonna put my nose down in my cape and just like stay alone.
Oh, is there anything more sad than that? He can't lift his eyebrows, and you just imagine him having a cape
Yeah.
like across his little nose, and he's like I can just imagine a little puppy. Oh,
So it's really, and also the reason why I'm bringing this in is because Egil is he is what when you think about outside like a Viking,
mhm.
he is a Viking. Like he went to Vikinger.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
So he is all those things that the stereo. I mean, Viking is a problematic word in itself, but I mean,
yeah,
yeah. But when people like he is that, but he brings so much more nuance to that picture of the man at that time. Like he was like it was also seen as it gave you prestige if you were a good poet. Uh,
mhm,
and Egil is very personal. He's very sensitive.
mhm.
And that's something that's also been said about the people at the times, like, oh, the people at that time in the Nordic countries, they were not sensitive. They barely had feelings. But here we see a lot of feelings, and he's, really sad.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I've had the pleasure of speaking to tons of artists on here, and there is always something about people who can tap into that personal side and allow their feelings to come across. And usually, people who've gone through some heartache or loss then leads to some, artistic creativity and really brings something
yeah,
out.
yeah, definitely. So onwards, he say that the ones who are known with um, Odin's drink will understand who the woman is, the woman I'm talking about. So Odin's drink is another. It's a kenning. It's a way of saying skaldic poetry. So the
Oh,
ones.
okay.
It's also a smart way of connecting. So he's also saying like the ones who know me and my story, and the ones who know skaldic poetry and Odin, they won't understand who the woman is. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, Arnbjørn doesn't understand.
Oh, okay.
So he tells him after some time. But he seems like very, he's just is expressing sorrow and longing for Oscar. And he's also been rejected. So he's like, it's like, and making a poem about it. So
Mhm.
that's how more, sensitive and expressive that can you be. It's one of the most personal things to like, even today, like imagine you go and like build up the courage to ask the person you like, do you want to go on a date?
It's
And
terrifying.
you get rejected and then telling about that to a friend, it's very like, ooh,
Yeah.
you know?
It is. It's not. Oh, it's not nice. And also
Yeah,
it's I don't care who you are. If you're the biggest, burliest, quote unquote man,
yeah,
or it's an amazing feeling like being in love. Like anybody who's been in love, like it's an addictive thing. A lot of us act stupid when we're in love. We can't get over it. You have to speak to this person all the time. We want to see them all the time. You just are obsessed. And it is such a lovely feeling. So, it's something that it's quite sad when it doesn't work, but also, the ability to kind of just accept that and be proud of that and happy. And I don't know, it is sad.
Yeah, it's really sad.
But he gets the girl in the end, so let's
Yeah,
hang on to that.
he does. So that's good. But this also it shows that he's very capable of being personal with people, but he's also very personal with Odin, as we will see in the other poems. So it kind of it says a lot about this person living so many years ago, and his qualities as a human. He was very personal with people close to him, and also Odin and the gods close to him. And he uses Odin's gift to skaldic poetry to kind of go through the heartache of what he's experiencing. So it's using art as a form of therapy, basically.
Yeah, we see so many people who do that. Yeah. Taylor Swift is probably one of the most famous people for doing that.
Yep, Egil was the Taylor Swift of the no.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, bless him. He might be. He's legendary now. We're speaking about him 1,000 years later.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So what can we tell about, specifically, I guess, about his beliefs of heathen as a heathen? What can we garner from all of this?
So I'm coming to that in the next poem. That will be a bit more specific. Okay. And there he is. He's in Iceland, and he learns that Eirik. So now skip scene. We are in Iceland, and Egil has just learned that Eirik Blodøks has destroyed his property in Norway. And he's really, really pissed at, and they have like relationship and quarrel that goes back into the family history as well. So this is,
That's a scary guy to damage your stuff. I mean, anybody who, he's nicknamed Blood Axe. He's got it for a reason.
Yeah. And his wife is Gudrun, which Egil hate as well. And she's known to be a witch or like a sidekona. Mm-hmm. So that's people you really kind of don't want to have as enemies, but Egil and his family does. So it's I'll start by reading it. It's here in my version. It's Lausavisur 28. So it's this is Egil, and I'm trying to read it as well as I can in reconstructed Old Norse, the pronunciation. So Icelanders who are listening will probably be like, oh, this is not correct. But it's not Icelandic, it's Old Norse for those who are interested. So, småskyldig god gjalda, gramrekke band av hondum, reidse rogn og Odin, rån min spear honum, folkmygge låt fleia, freyr og njörder av jordum, Ladies klovda stridi, landos dans de grandar. So Egil is very pissed, and he is actually commanding Odin and the other gods to be mad at Eirik Blodøks. Okay. So he's not asking, how we see as in contrast Christian prayers, where it's like very humble and please, and I don't serve this. It's very, you're supposed to be humble when, but here it's just like be, so he's very commanding a god to do something for him. He's saying that he's very mad at Eirik, or at Eirik Blodøks for destroying his sacred place, his Vegrandar. It means example, like sacred holy place.
Okay.
So we have evidence of, like, here we have evidence of, a heathen talking about having a holy place, probably a place where he worshipped. And we also see, a way of talking to the gods,
So
which
that
is
would
just commanding, not like please or do this for me. It's like,
do,
uh,
do this.
do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so I assume, does it go into any detail of what kind of place? Like, would it be like an alt? Because I see a lot of people making altars for people now. I don't know where that comes from. It's like a popular thing I see on Facebook all the time. Like, how do I make an altar for Thor? And I have no idea if that has any basis in history, but it seems to be a popular thing. Or is it more likely that it's maybe like an outbuilding, like almost like a mini temple type situation? Or do we know at all?
From just I'm not an expert on this, but there are some archaeological evidence, and some that are, it seems like it's like its own building,
Okay.
or a specific place. I mean, in Norway you have stone circles, and you have that in England as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be, and also Terry Gunnell, he talked about the Norwegians, sacrificing somewhere specific to
Mhm.
the god the Nissa outside the house at
Yeah.
Jul. And I personally think there are some links through to that. And
Yeah.
I don't think it was common to have like a special um, almost building if you were rich and could afford it. But
Yeah.
and I think, I mean, and we also have from archaeology, we see like they're the famous Thor, little statue.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. Did they look like people are doing it now? Probably, probably not. But honestly, I don't think that matters. Like the most important thing is just, that it gives you that an altar should give you a connectedness
Yeah.
through to the gods. So whatever you need to feel connected, and then if that's
Yeah.
a specific type of looking altar, that go on.
Yeah. Things do change, adapt.
Yeah.
Religions certainly change and adapt over time. So there's nothing wrong with how, like I say, it's however anybody feels connected, and as long as they personally feel connected, then nobody can really tell them they're doing it wrong. And I
No.
think it's probably probably bears in mind to remember that people had a lot more space back then as well. Even if you were relatively poor, you would have some land that you could pop a little outbuilding or a little post or whatever. I think it's a modern idea of people who have a land being wealthy. It is connected to wealth, whereas that's because a lot of us we live in these little built up areas right next to each other, and you have your house, and that's about it. Whereas I would assume even back then that even the poorer of people would have had some land to farm on or to keep livestock on.
I mean, in both Norway and Iceland, it's like you can have one farm and then you drive for 15 minutes and
Yeah,
then you go to the next farm. So yeah.
yeah, that yeah
Uh,
that's the thing. So that's why I think most people now will have like an internal little altar because that's all they have. They can spare a small corner of a room to build something, whereas they would have had more space to put maybe something more permanent
yeah,
exterior.
exactly.
Especially if you're slaughtering an animal, it's just a little bit easier outside, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I guess pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
But yeah, Egil is he's commanding that the gods should be angry with Eirik and that they should drive him away from Norway, the country, and punish him. So he's
Okay.
yeah, and then like in anger, like we can just imagine learning that someone had destroyed your property on
Hmm.
purpose. You know,
Yeah.
you would be really angry, and you know, behind anger is always sadness.
Yeah.
You know, so also what I'm wondering here is, uh, I think we see traces of a normal, you know, way of talking to the gods or praying.
Hmm.
I usually don't think like if you have, it can't just be Egil who are, you know, talking and commanding the gods.
Yeah.
It's probably more people. Um,
Yeah. You would assume if it was thought to be like a really disrespectful thing to do,
yeah,
he wouldn't put it in
yeah,
Mythology
and
because he wouldn't want people to think he's an asshole.
yeah, you wouldn't put it in imperative and saying like do this and
Yeah.
you know turn him away from the country and you know. So you see that Egil sees him. He kind of he says it many times that he sees Odin as his friend, and so you can be friends with the gods, and you know a political ally, and uh, yeah, yeah. It just and he also mentions Freyr and Njord here as well. And Njord is a god we don't know that much about, but yeah, he's they mentioned here as well, which is very interesting. So Freyr, Njord, and Odin are the gods who should, you know, punish Eric Brodex.
Hmm.
And again, Egil turns to Odin when he experiences strong feelings, and yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
and also again, this was personal belief. I think Anders Winroth, who has been a guest here, he an article written by him, he says that it was very common for heathens to have direct access through ritual, but here we also see just personal direct access.
Yeah.
And we have to keep in mind that Christianity at this time, it was you didn't have really a personal relationship you with God. You had it through the church or the priest. No,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
it's definitely this is definitely heathen, and
Hmm.
it's not like messed with. Yeah, so the gods could be friends, and you sacrificed to them, and you expected something back,
Hmm.
and you could command them to do what you wanted. And yeah, it's also another interesting thing is that in Havamon it says you shouldn't bloat or you shouldn't sacrifice too much,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that's probably something to do with just the idea of gift giving. Like if imagine if you give someone too many gifts, it's embarrassing, isn't it? Like and they are it's like you know it creates like a so if
Yeah.
they
It's a bit icky. You
yeah so,
it is, yeah, because we've all probably asked favors from people, but usually you have to save your favors for something big. Like I need help. Please, can you give me a hand with this? But if you're doing it, you know, every single day or once a week, you're asking a favor of somebody.
yeah
It gets old. They get frustrated. It's like, oh fuck,
yeah
come on, man, leave me alone.
exactly, and it's so human, and it I feel like it shows how human kind or close they kind of felt to the gods. Like oh you
Hmm.
what you it's common sense to do towards a person.
Hmm.
You shouldn't do that either to a god. So it's not good to bloat and sacrifice and ask for too many favors. Like be tactful about it.
Yeah, because we all know that person who'd just be asking for everything all the time.
Yeah, and doesn't
There's,
return the favor. He's never there when
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, we all know them. So you said that Odin and Njord should be the ones who are
Yeah,
getting
that's
rid of
right.
Eric. So in what context does he mention? You said Freya.
Yeah, so it's Freyr and Njord and Odin that he wants to they he want and
Oh, okay. So it's all three of them. I didn't know whether he mentioned them separately.
yeah
Okay.
yeah
So is there anything else we can learn about his beliefs?
So we have Sonatorek, which is the Sunnatap, or the loss of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And then there he says that he feels like Odin has let him down. So I will read those stanzas as well. And the context is Egil finds that I think it's his son Bodvar has died, and he carries him to land, and he goes into his bedchamber and closes the door, and he's basically just lays down to die because he's so sad. And then his daughter Torgerd, she knocks on the door and makes him. She helps him out of the sorrow by making him do poetry.
Oh.
This is the poetry he made when he was mourning his son. Or yeah,
Oh, Eagle's breaking my heart.
yeah. He is.
Oh,
I mean, he is. It's so much stuff.
bless him.
And yeah, so åtak gott vid Gerstrotten, Gerdunk, trygger att troa honom, Adervinan, Vagnaroni, Siger Hövendur of Slate with mig. So basically, it's saying I was on good terms with Odin, and I came to feel safe to trust him before Odin broke friendship with me. So we see that, he really saw Odin as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that just is a new way of looking at heathendom. Like they did see gods. A friend at that time could, of course, also be higher in status than them. So it was probably mentally, it was like, yeah, they were my friends, but higher in status. But I think that's kind of like a new, like, to me at least, I haven't really thought about looking at gods
as friends. Yeah.
as friends. Yeah.
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 They're kind of something other than, I guess. I guess I wouldn't consider gods as friends. I mean, it would be nice. It would be good to have a god as a friend.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not something we're brought up with, but it seems like this was, the case somewhat here. Yeah.
I love how much it shows just the humanity behind it, because I think it's so easy to look at the past and just kind of forget that human nature behind people. For a lot of the time, it's just words on a page, and you kind of think of it as being, it's tough, it's hardship, people die all the time. They must just be used to it. Maybe I don't know, but the loss of a son, it was as impactful and devastating then as it is now, and it's kind of beautiful to hear that and have that kind of connection that we're all humans, regardless if it's now 1,000 years ago or probably 5,000-10,000 years ago. We're all the same thing, and we have this complex feeling of emotions and love for those who are around us and we bring in.
Yep, exactly. And then the next poem, the next stanza, he says that he no longer sacrifices to Odin.
So it's really like an abandonment.
Yeah, but then he kind of says that Odin kind of has compensated me by making me a really good poet.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and he's also using Odin's gift to compose this poem, because if you were good at poetry, it was a gift that Odin had given to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's that idea again that I feel like we've been exploring a lot on the podcast recently, of sacrifice, of having to give something to receive something. He's lost a son, but he feels like he's learned the skills of a good poet. And it is something that seems to be popping up a lot recently, of a pound of flesh to get something back, almost.
Yeah, I mean it is that like that in life. Like if you want to, get fit, you have to sacrifice some
Yeah,
hours, working out. It's
yeah,
just depends on, what that sacrifice is. But yeah, we definitely see a heathen here talking about sacrificing is just to, and it's not just something made up by popular media or something. It is, you see here a heathen talking about
yeah.
sacrificing. So
Do you think that shows like a giving up in belief in Odin, or is it just I'm not going to sacrifice to you anymore because I'm hurt? Like,
yeah,
is it just that oh, I don't we're not friends anymore. You've betrayed me. I still believe in you, but I'm just not sacrificing to you anymore because basically fuck you. Or is it like, oh, I just don't believe in this anymore. I've just given up.
no, I think it's like he's very sad and angry, and just like you can be sad and angry with a friend who you felt should do something for you, and then they didn't. And I mean, many people have been said
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm never going to talk to this person again.
Hmm. I
But
mean,
like, it's so I think it's I I mean he ends up by saying like his gift of skaldic poetry is a compensation for
mhm,
um but Odin, another important element of Odin is that he is a deceitful god, and he
mhm.
is known, like his worshippers at the time must have known he is uh very deceitful. So
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah, I think that's one thing people need to remember is that Odin's an asshole.
yeah,
Like he's just not as much as he's portrayed as this like old man with his little hat on and his
yeah,
walking stick or whatever you want to call it. Like that's the image.
yeah,
But he is a bit of a dickhead.
yeah, yeah. So I'm Egil grows to be very old, at 80 years old. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's a fair age.
yeah, it is. And yeah, he is also said to be very tall. So he was, a tall person growing to be, very old for his time. So it's just a lot of,
Hmm.
he fits very much with the Viking, stereotype, but
Yeah, yeah.
he doesn't at all. When we see how, in touch with his feelings he is. And it shows that Egil really has like a close and personal relationship to Odin, and that floating and sacrificing it's really part of that
Mhm.
relationship, and it shows that he is expecting something in return, and
Th-
it's yeah,
I feel like that's something that probably resonates with all religions, no matter who you believe in, or even if you're atheist, agnostic. There is something to when you lose somebody, this feeling of "fuck you, how have you done this to me?" And you see it all the time, whether it's Christians who believe in, in God. How many times do you hear, "Why have you done this to me? Why would you do this?"
yeah,
And that anger towards this deity who he's meant to be all powerful. It's like you know, why have you done that? And then that upset and that feeling, that's something that it probably runs true throughout it all.
yep, definitely. And this probably Egil doing specific sacrifices to keep Odin on good terms with him, and then he feels like, oh, he's not anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and that Odin has broken his friendship with Egil. Yeah, so it's a very sad poem. But again, it shows how you know sensitive and in touch with his feelings Egil is, and it's a and also if you look at all three poems, like it is consistent. Like he's personal in all the poems.
Mm-hmm.
He's personal with Arenbjörn, his friend. He's if you can't be more personal than hey, just go and do this for me.
Yeah.
That's you have to know someone very well to speak with them in that manner.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also see this poem. So Yeah, what I like about this as well, it just gives you more insight and more, you see a person more in 3D than rather this
Yeah,
cartoonish, you know,
I love it. You can get a lot of understanding from people's actual words rather than just an interpretation of what this object, this carving might be.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, okay, so is that the end of Egil? Are we okay? So, what? Who was the second?
Halfred is not that known, but he was a skald for Olav Tryggvason.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, again, he's a very, he's a real person
Yeah.
that was skald for in the court of Olav Tryggvason, and Olav Tryggvason was one of the kings in Norway who wanted to Christian Norway.
Okay.
And Alfred, I hope I get the numbers correctly now. 900, and he was born in 960
Wonderful. Yeah. Okay.
and died in 1007.
Okay.
So
Oh, so he only made it 47.
yeah, not not that old.
No.
So the saga is about he had an impossible love for a woman called Kolfinna. Again, a lot of love at that, and longing and yearning at the time, and not this, just robotic going toward people.
Yeah.
So, and then it's about his conversion to Christianity. And Olav Tryggvason made him perform kind of a poem, skaldic poem, saying that he wasn't Christian anymore. And then this poem, it shows how much he's struggling to really saying that I'm a Christian now.
Okay. Oh, sorry, you said he's not a Christian anymore. Did you mean he's not a heathen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Exactly. So I'm now a Christian and not.
Okay. And he's kind of shows how he's struggles to say it. And I guess he probably really feels under duress to say it as well.
Yeah, exactly. And what's funny about that is he's actually describing a lot of heathen practices and beliefs under pressure, and he's still not, imagining him saying that in front of a king, in front of a court, and he's still, you kind of see very well that he kind of doesn't want to give the Nordic gods up at all.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
So I'm a bit. It's how many stanzas are there? It's 12. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stanzas. I don't know if I should read them all or if I should just, talk about what they're about. Maybe that's better.
Maybe because otherwise I think we might start to run out of time. Because Claire's going to be joining at some point for our little bonus show we're doing after.
I think so he's saying basically like, it was in the past that I performed sacrifices or blot to Odin, but now people are not doing it anymore. So
okay.
Again, it shows that heathens and people were, performing sacrifices.
It's almost as if he doesn't want to say I'm not doing it anymore. It's the cultural norm has changed, so I have to regrettably also follow suit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's my interpretation exactly. And then he says, next stanza it says, mankind has performed praised Odin. And so they use the word hylli, and hylli, it can mean praise, but it has been translated to praise song or making songs.
Okay.
So I think that shows that people didn't only, were quiet and said prayers
Hmm.
to themselves. If you were, talking and sacrificing to the gods, it should be something said out loud,
Yeah.
and that people did it collectively as well.
Which makes
Yeah,
complete sense.
yeah,
I think, it's music is something that connects everybody together and also brings a very spiritual feeling when you have a lot of people in the same mindset, kind of singing, chanting together. And it's something you see run through in all walks of life. Probably a reason with like football fans, when you get a lot of people in the same place singing a song, it's that group mentality.
yeah. It creates a specific type of energy
Yeah,
that you
absolutely.
can get by just being quiet and
Yeah.
that song.
Hmm.
But it's fun how this is a heathen kind of turning to Christian. They kind of I like it when you don't have to learn something new. Like you what you have had in mind kind of fits what the heathens themselves are
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
um, and it also says that all mankind has praised Odin. So that's just how widespread it is. It wasn't,
Hmm.
it used to be everyone. Um, yeah,
But
and
you'd assume that in his world before Christianity kind of came along, the idea would be that they don't know,
yeah,
people's worlds are very small
yep,
uh,
exactly,
1,000 years ago. So to him, like everybody, it's
yep,
just what it was.
yep, exactly. And then he says, "Yes, I now serve Christ, but I would rather not hate Odin."
Okay.
And again, Odin is the god for skaldic poetry. So again, if he gives up Odin, he gives up skald. Like he's probably afraid of not being a very good skald anymore.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
it definitely sounds like somebody who's speaking again under duress. I will say this, but also I have to, because he could quite easily just say, yeah, I accept Christianity.
yeah,
But he has to put that little bit on the end to say, but I would rather not have to give up this thing as well.
yeah, exactly. And it's a lot of pressure. Actually, I didn't mention, but Olav Tryggvason, the king, he is actually saying like that stanza was not good enough for showing me that you're a good Christian. Give me another one. So he's really like, come on, show me
Yeah.
that you're a Christian.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so that's how it goes.
So it's never quite good enough.
No. And then he also here, and here it says another stanza, 11. It says he actually mentions how Odin is a deceitful god. So it says that yes, I'm not so fond of Odin because he is uh, false, and when we were doing sacrifice to him, he would be deceitful.
Okay.
So again, this idea of Odin being deceitful,
Hmm.
it's showing here in the poem. Um, so you can trust Odin. And he probably talks a bit like it's funny because like he uses this knowledge that is negative, but everyone it's an accepted knowledge, and I feel like he kind of like says that it's safe to say,
Hmm. Yeah.
you know
Hmm.
so he's talking shit, but it's like it's not really because everyone knows this.
Everybody knows it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um and and then he actually ends the poem uh with saying that uh, he's forced to like he's done with all gods, but he's forced to pray to Christ.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
uh,
So he lays it out.
yeah, yeah, but he's also says that I am I'm done with the Skop Norna, the creations or the the believing in the Norn's destiny. And again, it's like it's so nice because you can then go to the Eddas and read about the Norns because the Norns are mentioned many times there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it shows that the Eddas were man-made, but then it also influenced man.
Yeah.
And it's also so he's actually ending by saying, "I'm not praying to or Njord anymore. I'm forced to, or I'm not. I don't believe in Njord anymore, but I'm forced, or I have to pray to Christ."
Yeah.
And he's mentioning again, Njord. He's not that we don't know that much about him, but he is also reoccurring here
Yeah, he's
in
mentioned in both.
yeah, so it's nice. It gives us an indicator of his importance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and also he talks about how he used to perform blot here as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is both the poems kind of like it fits with how, at least in my mind, except from the Wiener, that I feel like the friend aspect is more like a new addition, but it's
Yeah.
not really. It's nice when archaeology and place names and then the heathens themselves, like it all matches.
Yeah. Yeah. It means we're on the right track.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Wonderful. I think we're just about out of time.
yep,
Anyways, we come to a good because that I find that fascinating. Like I say, I love when it's people's own words and you can really try to understand their thoughts and opinions because there's nothing better than when somebody says this, this is what I'm thinking in this moment, and you can really then try to look at it. So yeah, I love that. Thank you very much.
thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome anytime. Is there anything you want to plug or shout out before we let the patrons ask you some questions?
No, I think let's just get to it. So I know you have another guest coming up.
No, don't worry. Claire will wait. We like I say, we're going to record a bonus show that's going to go on our Patreon where Claire brings little bits of saga, little tidbits and small stories that she thinks we would find interesting. But there's no rush. She can join us if she comes early in the Q&A.
Yeah, people can find me at my Instagram account if they want to follow.
I guess for me to plug, it's obviously just if you want to follow the business, Horns of Odin, me, Daniel and 1. The podcast is Nordic Mythology Podcast on all the different platforms. Again, obviously the Patreon, I know we shout about it a lot, but we put a lot of effort into it and it does help the podcast keep going and you get all the bonus material. And we're going to do a Q&A now with you, Stine, where people are going to ask you some questions and you'll find that on the Patreon. That'll go up there and you'll get all the back catalog of those as well. So yeah, let's just jump straight into that.